What is going on, guys? It is Bucky, and welcome to your second lesson in how to build a Java stock market analyzer program. How awesome does that sound? So now that we already have the data, we can begin building the program to analyze it. And before I get started, I just want to tell you guys one little thing I did already. In my folder, if you go to my C and my stocks folder, I got that new DAO, which we have before, and this has all the data in it from today to the beginning of time, pretty much. I also took the most recent 20 rows out of this and made it into a smaller file called DAO. And this is pretty much just to test. Like, I knew there was 20 rows in here, and we're gonna have a formula called find rows, and in order to verify that, I just needed to make a smaller file. And like, when I make smaller programs just to test, I'm like, alright, is this one greater than this one? Then I just have something small to look at, and I don't have to go searching through my huge file. So if you want to get a little piece of your huge data file and put it in another smaller file, so you can actually visually see that you're working with, and it makes a little more sense, you can do that. But when we run this program full-fledged, and we're going to be analyzing all of this data right here, because the more data you analyze, the more accurate it's going to be. So again, all of my data is in the new DAO, and my smaller 20 rows of data is in the DAO. So we're going to be testing with this DAO, but remember, when you run the program for real, that's the new DAO. And you can see the size different right here. Quite the difference. So now what I did to set up my program is I built my main method right here in something called stockmarket.java. I named it stock market. You can name it anything you want. You can name it like stock program if you want, but we're going to be using this to run all of the other classes pretty much. And for now, I just want you to build one other class, and I'm going to name this read files. Now what this class is going to do is pretty much take that file, that CSV file that we just downloaded, and it's pretty much gonna read it and verify that it's a file and do stuff to it. So name yours read files, because that's the basics of what we're gonna be doing. Now you need to import two things that I already did. Just import everything from Java.io, which is input output, and this is so you can like input output files. And also string tokenizer. And string token, well, I'll tell you guys what that does later. It pretty much takes all the commas out of your file, in essence. So now let's get programming. The first thing that we need to do is store that file in a variable. So from the file class, name your variable something. I'm going to name my file because it's easy, and set it equal to new file, and set as a parameter, it takes the location of wherever your file is, and it takes it as a string. So here's what you need to do. I put mine in the C drive, so I'm going to put C:, and instead of 1 \, remember, because this is a string, we need to escape a \. So anytime you have a new directory, put 2 \. Normally it would be 1, but 1 is an escape character. So if we put 2, it views it as 1 \. And then I have a folder called stocks, and you should put it in the same one as me. And then I have my file called DAO.csv. Remember, this is my smaller file that I'm going to use for testing purposes. So now this file is stored in this variable called file. So now anytime I want to use a file, I just use the keyword or variable name file instead of having to write this whole thing. How awesome is that? So we're going to be building two other variables that we're going to use later. Actually, a variable and an array. The second method we're going to build is to find how many rows are in that file. So put int row and set it equal to 0 for now. And this is pretty much going to store the number of rows in that file. And we got to find the number of rows to figure out how big we need to make our array. And you'll see why later on. And the second thing we have to create is an array to store all the data. Now we actually just can't read the file like it is right now. We need to change it into an array, because we can do a lot more stuff with an array. It has a bunch of built-in methods that we can to a CSV file. So that's why we need to, we're going to eventually be changing that file we downloaded into an array. So since it has rows and columns, let's go ahead and make it a string, and just have it say items. So now we're going to have a two-dimensional array called items eventually. And remember, since well, I'll show you guys right here. If you go to computer, see stocks, I know you guys can't see this, but there we go. Remember, we can't just make this an integer array or a float array, because this first element right here, that's the date. That's not an integer or float. All of these we could probably have float, double, but this one, since it's not, pretty much since these all aren't the same type, we're gonna put them all as a string and then convert them to whatever type they need to be. So let's go ahead and just make a two-dimensional array, and we'll name it items. And this is gonna store all of the elements from that file I just showed you. So now let's just go ahead and make a quick little method. And what this method is going to do is pretty much check if this file is a file. And this pretty much verifies that we have the correct path pretty much. So go ahead and make it public boolean, since it's going to return a true if it's a file and false if it's not. And name it something like check is file. And it doesn't take any parameters. And now let's just go ahead and put something like let's just go ahead and return, since we want a return value, file, what we're going to be testing. And there's a built-in method that's called isFile. In this isFile method, it checks this right here, which is in essence this, and it says, alright, if this file is a file, then I'm going to return true. If it isn't a file, I'm going to return false. And let's go ahead and use this right now. So remember, this is all in the class read files, and this method is called check is file. So let's go ahead and put read files r, you can name it whatever you want, I just name mine r, equals new read files empty parameters. And now we can use all that stuff in this read files class, and we only have one method in here, so let's go ahead and use that. Let's just go ahead and system out print line, and let's go ahead and call that method r dot what do we put, check is file right there. So what this is pretty much going to do is it's going to print out true or false. If this file is a file, we're going to get the return value of true. And remember, this isFile is a built-in method in Java, so we don't have to create this. If this is not a file, it's going to return false. So let's go ahead and run it, and we should get true right now. And look at this, we get true printed out on our screen. And just to show you guys how this works, if we have a file called like DAO43, we never created this file. It doesn't exist on our computer, so this is not a file. So if we go ahead and try to run this again, it's going to go false. And that way we can only run this program if it is a file. In the next tutorial, I'm going to be showing you guys how to use this program and kind of check if it is a file, and if it is a file, run the program. Just a nice little safety measure. But for now, change your directory back to where your file is, and in the next tutorial we're going to be getting the row number of the file in here. So for now, remember to build your check is file method to check if the file is a file. And again, like I said, in the next tutorial we're going to be getting the row number of that CSV file. So thank you guys for watching. I know we're off to a great start. This program is going to be awesome, by the way. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.